In this module, we are going to explore the topic of emotional relief, which could be the first aid that I provide to anyone who comes to my office. When you suffer some emotional trauma, the first thing you will look for, even if you don't know you are doing it, is to try to get relief from what is causing you pain. That's why in the first session, I always focus on the relief aspect, which is what we are going to be working on here. If you think about any time you felt a lot of stress, the question that arises is when you were able to feel relief. The answer to this is that you were relieved the moment you felt you had overcome something that was causing the stress you were feeling. As you can see, you get rest, firstly because the effects of what made you suffer have been mitigated, and secondly because something that bothered you has finally ended. The same thing happens in relation to projecting the future, which is what causes anxiety. You know that you have to face something terrible in the future, but suddenly you are told that it is not going to happen, and it causes you to calm down, to relieve yourself, because you will no longer have to face what tormented you. Now, for the purposes of this program, emotional and psychic relief is nothing more than a process through which we seek to lighten the load or psychic weight that you carry due to the trauma you are facing, through which an improvement is achieved in the symptoms that generate that unbearable discomfort that you are experiencing at a certain moment. If you look, the relief process involves helping you to immediately reduce the pain you are feeling, for which there are a series of phases and techniques that we are going to be exploring in this section. This is what is done prior to the healing process, which we will explore later. If you want to be clear about what relief is, think about a great ball of energy that arises within you in moments when you suffer emotional trauma. It's the psychic load I am talking about. And you carry this burden, which is what causes you pain, in some very identifiable parts of your body, such as the chest, head, stomach, shoulders, or back. That depends on each of you. But if you notice, before starting the healing process, we need to make that psychic load that you are carrying decrease instantly. We need to make your psychic load smaller, lighten your weight, reduce your symptoms, so that you can feel precisely that relief from the emotional weight that overwhelms you at a specific moment in your life. The problem is that when you do not undergo a relief process, you continue to suffer for several days, sometimes even weeks, because of something that could be resolved quite simply. And in fact, if you do not receive this emotional first aid, you expose yourself to the pain you feel increasing as the days go by, because no one gives you the help you need in those moments of suffering that you experience. In essence, what is sought with a relief process is that you can regain peace of mind, since only to the extent that you are in a state of semi-balance, I can proceed to heal you, which is where we are going in this program. Now, what is the tranquility that we seek so much for this relief process? Well, it is nothing more than a process in which you free yourself, mind you, from all the worries, fears, and stress that cause you suffering. And it seeks to help you to induce a state of carefree and indifference towards what you are feeling at that moment. I mean, pain and suffering. Given this entire framework of reference, let me introduce you to the phases of emotional and psychic relief that we are going to be using in this module and that we are going to address in greater depth in the following sections. These phases are first, decompress; second, reduce the psychic load; third, slow down thinking; fourth, perception of improvement; fifth, psychic trance; and sixth, tranquility. Before going in-depth explanation of the phases of relief, let me tell you about a case I had years ago in which one of my clients arrived in a state of very strong emotional breakdown. She had gotten involved with a person she had met on an app. She was a young professional woman and she met an older man on the dating app. She wanted to have a stable relationship, and this man had indicated to her that he was also looking for that type of relationship in a partner. But what happened? My client discovered that this man was still looking for a partner not only on the dating app, but on the other social networks where he dedicated himself to looking for young women like her. Needless to say, she was already coming from a traumatic relationship which had generated a complex of enormous interpolation in addition to the problems associated with her paternal relationship, the origin of all this. I realized all this very quickly, but here it was about helping her to reduce her symptoms. Because of what I am telling you, my client arrived in a state in which she couldn't stop crying and feeling like the ugliest woman in the world. And she came with me precisely because she had spoken with her mother, who told her that she should be a rational person in the face of what she was suffering. Basically, hold on. And that caused that as the days went by, her pain and suffering, as I told you in the previous section, only increased, to the point that it became unbearable. Because no matter how hard she tried, she simply couldn't stop feeling like someone that no one cared about. Notice, even though she had a family and friends who cared about her. That is why psychic relief is important, because if you look, rationality is of no use here. You know you should be okay, but you just can't. Then, to the phases that you are going to learn in this section, little by little, she began to calm down. In fact, at the end of the session, she was laughing about the situation. And she was surprised and asked me, what did I do? I told her, well, I did magic on you. I did sorcery on you. Because it seems to people that I am casting some kind of incantation on them. Because they do not understand how they go from such a state of obvious pain to a state of instant happiness. Well, that is precisely what relief achieves. In most cases, my clients and those who work with me know this very well. They end up laughing at what bothered them and also about themselves. But you should keep in mind that relief is only part of this process. Relief is the first step to reduce the pain you feel, but then you need to do the healing process and learn other techniques, which is what I am going to be teaching you here, such as psychic dissociation. In this case, which I am talking about here, this person calmed down, she felt good, she thanked me, but she told me that she was not going to need the healing. The next phase, I told her that she was going to need it, but I can't force people to follow my advice. Well, the story is that she relapsed again. No more than 2 weeks passed, and she was suffering again for the same person. And here I obviously had to tell her that relief is not healing, and that if she wanted to obtain long-term results, she was going to have to undergo the entire process. If I tell you this, it is so that you keep in mind that once you learn to relieve yourself psychically, you should not stop there, like my client, because you are only reducing your pain, but not treating its causes, and repairing the psychic system that does not function due to the trauma you have experienced. So please work through all the stages so that you are not left with just relief, because that is the trap of psychic relief. You run the risk of believing that you are healthy because you have managed to feel good about what overwhelmed you. But well, given the warning, let's move on to explore the different stages of this emotional relief. I see you there.